On today's podcast, we talk about the 8 mindsets that makes people successful when facing foreclosure. Hey, Foreclosure Fix family, and welcome to another episode of the Foreclosure Fix podcast, where our goal is to help 1 million homeowners successfully navigate foreclosure. Now, if that mission resonates with you, you know what to do. Like, subscribe, and share our content with someone who you know can benefit, or better yet, get them a copy of our latest book called The Foreclosure Fix, 12 Proven Steps to Beat the Bank, Escape Foreclosure, and Turn Your Property into a Profitable Asset. I'm your host, DJ Elojo, and in today's podcast, we are diving into the 8 mindsets of people who are successful in foreclosure, when facing foreclosure, or after foreclosure. All right, so we are about to have a good time because we are just going through and really diving into the thought patterns and what people are doing in that season of stress and consternation and when they're scared. And then after the fact, when they get past it, what they think about, how they move forward, and how they set goals and things like that. Recently, I had the opportunity to complete a sprint triathlon. And for those of you who don't know what a sprint triathlon is, it is not like an Ironman or anything crazy. I am not in that good of shape. It is basically a baby triathlon. It's like, hey, if you ever want to do a triathlon and you want to just kind of dip your toe into the water, this is it, right? And so if you're a runner, I would liken it to doing maybe like a 10K or something like that, so it's not very, very long or difficult. But it is challenging from the perspective of somebody who has never done a competitive race. And so it took me about 2 hours and 20 minutes, and I had a ton of fun, but also I had a lot of time to think, because typically when I work out, I am working out in my basement or running or in the streets. And so I typically have headphones on, so I'm listening to music or listening to a podcast or something like that. And so I'm not really just sitting with my thoughts. I'm actually just like letting the beat and the cadence move me. But the rules for the triathlon is that you can't have any music or anything like that. One is for safety because you are riding your bike on the main road. But then 2, I think they also, want you to be aware and alert and have camaraderie with those who are around you. And that's a lot harder to do when you have headphones in your ear. That being said, for an hour and a half, all I was doing was, contemplating my own mortality because I thought I was going to die because I was so tired. But I was also thinking about the Foreclosure Fix family. And that's what kind of prompted this podcast. As I was running and doing the different things that are part of a triathlon, which is swim, bike, run, a lot of different things I thought about related back to the Foreclosure Fix family. It related back to the people who I've seen be very confident even when facing foreclosure, and rebuild and regain after foreclosure. And so in today's podcast, we really want to dive deep into kind of 8 things that I've seen that make people successful when facing foreclosure, during foreclosure, and after foreclosure. And so let's dive right in. The first thing is goal setting. So when I have seen people rebound from foreclosure, or even in the midst of foreclosure, I've seen them set goals for where they want to be. And that goal may be as simple as like, I want to get help in my foreclosure situation. It may be, I want to buy another home. It may be, I want to rebuild my financial future. Whatever it is, they set the goal and then they begin to take baby steps along the way to get there. And what they also do is they tell people about that goal. And I'm not trying to tell you to go out there and spread your business about your financial situation to a million other people. That's not what I'm saying. But for example, just say you are a parent and, you are in a situation where your bills are more than what your income is. Your goal doesn't have to be like, hey, y'all, I just don't have enough money. I need to make more money. No, the goal should be, hey, I want to be a better provider. Or the goal should be, I want to live life in a way that allows me to have more margin and more flexibility in my life, right? So that's not saying, oh, I'm broke and I need some help. That's just saying that you want to live a life with more margin and more flexibility. And so if you have a goal, whether the goal is to run a sprint triathlon like I did, or the goal is to get out of your financial situation and get out of foreclosure, you need to tell people. And you have to always have people who are close to you, who can hold you accountable. Not the people who you just tell a goal to and they're gonna laugh at you and say, ha ha ha, good luck on that. No, you want people who are gonna be in your corner, who's gonna say, hey, you said you are trying to get in a better place financially. Have you looked for new jobs? Have you taken on a second job? Have you asked for a raise? Have you start saving money? Did you go out to eat every day this week, right? Are you paying your bills on time? Are you doing the things you need to do that are going to get you out of your own way to get to where you want to be, right? That is the first thing. So if you got to go, tell other people and start taking the first step, which is the easiest thing you can do, right? So when you think about a goal, just don't have a big pie in the sky, huge goal. Break it down into small little steps. So you want to become more financially free. Well, what does that look like? Well, it means I need to make more money. It means I need to have a budget. It means I need to look at my expenses and see what I can cut. All right. What is the first thing you can do? Well, I can look at my statements and see where my money's going. Great. All right. Tomorrow night, I'm going to print off all my statements from my American Express card, my Visa card, my MasterCard, and my bank account. And I'm going to review my statements just to see where my money goes. All right. Easy first step. The next step is I'm going to go through and see if I can cancel subscriptions I don't need. Next step, I'm going to make a budget. Don't make it so that it's a big, huge thing. Take it one day at a time, one step at a time. And that's the way you can make a big goal small. They say, you eat an elephant one bite at a time. All right. So if you have a goal, tell other people and take it step by step. So that's the first thing. The next thing is practice. When I was working out for my sprint triathlon, there were numerous days where, I didn't want to go run. I am not a runner. I hate everything running. I always used to joke hey, I only run if somebody's chasing me, right? Back in the day, and I say back in the day, a long time ago, I used to play basketball, and that was cool because it was sprinting, right? It was a short burst of energy, and then you get to walk, or a timeout happens, or whatever else may be the case. So that was cool. But this consistent running, going nowhere, or running around in a circle around a track, it's not for your boy. And so at the end of the day, I really hate running. And so I had to motivate myself every morning to run. And my wife would check in on me and say, hey, did you run? I had some buddies who would check in who were also doing the race, and they'll say, hey, did you run? Did you swim? Did you do this? Did you do that? And so that accountability became huge. And so what I would say is that when you are looking at making a change, you need to practice. And the first time you do it, it's going to suck. But if you keep doing it, you keep waking up, you begin to enjoy the journey. And I'm not saying that I enjoy running by any stretch. I wouldn't take it that far, but I can get through it. And that's kind of how life is sometimes, is that you just can't sit down and say, hey, I am going to not do this ever. It's like sometimes you got to just struggle through it. And struggling through it sometimes, it just becomes the norm. And it's not my favorite part by any stretch of the imagination, but I know I can do it. And that's the same thing. There's going to be some things in life that just suck, and you got to embrace it, practice embracing the suck, and get through it and go on to the next thing. So practice. The next thing is encouragement. When I was running that triathlon, and I've seen this from people who are in the midst of heartache, whether they lost a loved one, whether they just lost their house, whether they just lost their job. The ability to encourage others while you are going through something strenuous, challenging, tough, allows you to take the focus off yourself and put it on other people. And not only does it lift your mood and boost your spirits, but it also changes your mindset. And so what I want you to think about in this season, as you may face foreclosure, or as you're going through a difficult situation, is that stay encouraged. Stay encouraging yourself. Stay encouraging other people around you. Stay encouraging those who may be facing a similar situation. Because in life, when you're encouraging somebody, again, you take the focus off of yourself. When I was dead tired and I was running, I would see, people coming, and I'll say, hey, we're almost at the finish line. We're almost there. And for that, 10 seconds, I was thinking all about them, what shoes they were wearing, how fast they were running. And I forgot about the fact that my shins were hurting, my back was hurting, I was ready to quit and stop. And it's the same thing in life. When you're going through a tough time and you take a second and you pour into somebody else, maybe you go pray for somebody else, maybe you go lend a helping hand to somebody else. It allows you to put the focus on something besides yourself. And not only does that lift your spirits and boost your mood, but it also allows you to remember that this is not the end of the world, that this too shall pass. And although it may be difficult, and although it's challenging, and although it's not something that you can take lightly or a situation where you just want to, take for granted, it is something that will pass, and you will be able to come out on the other side better, stronger, and a wonderful person. All right. The next thing is transitions. And so when you do a triathlon, you have different transitions. So basically, you have a transition where you transition from bike to run, and it's transition from swim to bike. And so the first transition is from swim to bike. So you get out the water, you're soaking wet, and then you got to, get on the bike and start bike riding. And then same thing with the bike. You get done biking, you have to take off your bike shoes, put on your running shoes, and you got to transition. And what I thought about in those transitions is that you can lose a ton of time in the transitions. Again, I never have completed a triathlon until recently, and it took me forever. Like, you're wet. So trying to take off your shoes, I couldn't put my bike shoes on because they were so slippery. And it took me I want to say 5 or 6 minutes from the transition from the water to the bike, versus there's some people who can transition in 30 seconds. Right? They get out the water, run to their bike, they're on the bike, and they're gone. And my 6-minute transition versus their 30-second transition is a huge difference when you look at a race, right? I complete the race in almost, more than double the time the person who won did. And I think it was maybe 125% longer that it took me to complete the race than a person who won the race. And so the reason I bring up a transition is that for many of the people who are going through foreclosure, this may be a transition for you, a transition in the season of life, a transition from a marriage, a transition from a job, a transition from a health scare, whatever it may be a transition. And a lot of times, if you spend longer in that transition than you need to be, you are just delaying what is on the other side. And so if you spend longer in a crappy relationship, if you spend longer lamenting the fact that unfortunately the marriage didn't work, if you spend longer saying, woe is me, that this foreclosure situation should never have happened to me, and you don't make plans to move forward, and you don't start moving and taking the right steps, you stay in that transition longer than you need to be. And yes, I'm saying that you should try to transition as fast as possible. There is no perfect timeline or guide to say, okay, this is how long you need to stay in a transition. It really depends on what happened to you, what's going on. But at the end of the day, you need to make sure that you're taking the right steps, whether that's getting counseling, whether that's getting help from a professional, doing all the things you need to do in order to put yourself in the best possible position to move forward. And so you don't want to stay in transitions longer than you need to be. You want to make the transition and move on, and that allows you to get to a better state of mind and a better financial situation sooner. Next is trusting and help. So when I was swimming in the water, and for the record, I don't swim in lakes too often. And I'm not trying to sound like I'm bougie, but I've typically only swam in swimming pools and in oceans where the water's clear and you're snorkeling, on a vacation in the Caribbean or something like that, where you pay the cruise ship, to take you out and go snorkel. And so I have never really had the experience of swimming in lakes. And the lake is a little different. It's a little bit more murky, a little darker, and I couldn't see, even though I had goggles on. And so when you are swimming at this particular course, it wasn't like you just swim straight and then you swim the course. It's a triangle, and they put buoys around. And so while I was swimming, I was having difficulty seeing, and I was going inside the buoy. And so somebody comes up and says, hey, you got to swim out because of the fact that you are cutting the course short. And as a result, I adjusted my course, but I still couldn't see, and then I swam too far. And so he had to come paddle back around and said, hey, you're swimming too far. Swim back the other way. And essentially, because of that, I swam 20% further than I need to swim. And I give you this is because sometimes we need to trust the folks who have experience, trust the people who've been there before. When we can't see. And for many people, you're going through this foreclosure process and you don't know what's going on. You don't know what the next thing is. You don't know what the next move of the bank is. You don't know how to navigate it. And you're looking around and you're saying, like, what do I do? And we are just swimming blindly. We can't swim. We don't know if we're doing the right thing, the wrong thing. We don't know if we're going the right direction or the wrong direction. We're just out there swimming blindly. And what I want you to do is get some help. And I want you to get some help from somebody who's been there, who's done that, somebody who's a competent professional who can help you. And as I always tell you, foreclosure help is free from the federal government. Give them a call. Call your attorney. Call the attorney who sent you the demand letter and who's telling you, hey, you need to pay this money. You need to get help from a professional. It is very, very important. And by getting help, it's going to save you from making mistakes. It's going to save you from dragging this thing out. It's going to save you from paying more fees and things like that. And so you want to get help sooner rather than later. The next thing is comparison. So as we were doing the race, I noticed that there were people who were younger than me, like teenagers, and people who were significantly older than me, like almost double my age. And I'm pushing 40, right? And so you had a wide range of people, and people had different athletic abilities. And some people were like super fit, like, you know, they could be a professional player. And some people were like me, just, you know, a dad trying to make it, right? Or a mom trying to make it, or a person trying to make it. At the end of the day, if I compared myself and tried to keep up with the people who were super fit, who had done 50 triathlons in their lives, guess what? I wouldn't have made it. I wouldn't be able to make it. I would have died on the course because I would have been swimming too fast. I've been trying to bike too fast. I would have hurt myself. I would have done something to put myself in a situation that I did not want to be in. And I had to go at my own pace. Even though people were running past me, swimming past me, biking past me, I had to go at my own pace. But by me going at my own pace, it allowed me to finish the race. And that's the same thing in life, that you have to make sure that you are not out there looking at other people and trying to compare. You know, somebody once said, comparison is the thief of joy. And I strongly believe that when you're looking around trying to compare, like, this person has this and that person has that, why don't I have that? You can't look up and see, gosh, I get to enjoy the beautiful sky. I get to enjoy the beautiful breath that I live. I get to be happy that my family's around, that my kids are around, that I hear the voice of the person I love, that I can see and touch my wife or my spouse or my significant other, that my parents are alive, that, you know, I have a car to drive that starts up when I put the key into the ignition, that, you know, I live in a country where I can get running water, that electricity doesn't just go out on me, that I can take a hot shower, that you miss that when you're comparing yourself to other people. Because I guarantee that no matter how bad your financial situation is, no matter how bad the foreclosure situation is that you're going through right now, there are millions of people around the world who will switch places with you in a heartbeat. There are people every day who are trying to come over from other countries, people who are risking their lives, dying, trying to cross lakes and rivers and streams of water and to get into this country. And so when you are comparing yourself to others, you miss out on the opportunity to see the blessings that God has put in front of you. And so just be mindful that those who compare are still in their joy. And so do not be that person. Do not be that type of person. Change today. The mindset of those who are successful on the other end of foreclosure is a mindset that does not compare. The next thing is limitations. Is not putting limitations on yourself. As I said before, when I was doing the triathlon, there were people double my age there. They're 80, right? And I looked at those folks and I just stood in awe. They were just inspiring because I'm like, you know, this person's double my age, and some of them have better times than me. So like they're in better shape than me and they're double my age. And I just looked and I said, man, you can't put limitations on yourself. This person woke up this morning and said, hey, you know, I'm about to go do a triathlon, right? And they're in great shape. They're healthy. They're moving. And it just made me say, man, don't put limitations on yourself. And also the teenagers, right? Yeah, you know, 15-year-old, you know, you can go in the refrigerator and eat everything in the refrigerator and not gain weight. But I'm like, man, this person's only 15. You know, they're out here running a race and already stressing their bodies and putting that type of pressure on themselves to be great. And so don't put limitations on yourself. The last piece is that there were people also doing the race who had disabilities. And that was super inspiring because there are people who had like physical limitations where, maybe they didn't have legs, but they were still swimming. Maybe, they did not have legs, but they were still able to do kind of a modified bike where they were using their arms to as the pedals, right? And those folks were flying through. And at the end of the day, it's like all these people who have all these excuses as to why they shouldn't be doing something, they're doing it. They're not giving up. They're not saying, oh, because of this situation or woe was me. And that's so inspiring to me because of the fact that regardless of your situation, regardless of what happened, don't put limitations on yourself. You can get out of this foreclosure situation. You can make it to the other side. You can be the best you can be. You can defy the odds. And I'm talking to you out there. Yes, you can defy the odds, regardless of where you come from, regardless of your home, regardless of how much you make right now. That does not limit your future. And so get out of your own way, get out of your own head, and make sure that you are not putting limitations on yourself. Make a plan, take steps, and do the right things. The last thing is self-talk is so important. What message are you telling yourself? When you wake up in the morning, are you telling yourself you're a failure because you're facing foreclosure? Are you telling yourself, hey, I'm going to get out of this. I'm going to work through this. I'm going to get the help I need. What are you telling yourself? That self-talk is so important. As I said before, when you are on the race, you have a lot of time to think because, you're either talking to somebody else next to you, if there's somebody next to you. But if you're slow like me, there's nobody next to you because everybody else done passed you and you're just out there by yourself. And so what do I tell myself? I said, hey, you can finish this race. Hey, there are people counting on you who you got to go tell like, hey, I did it. So that's what kept me motivated. And if I were to start saying like, hey, nobody's around, I can stop. I don't have to finish. No one will know. I can just tell them I tried. Then that's exactly what would have happened. I would have just stopped and said, hey, I'm done. I'm too tired. But because of the fact that, one, I had told a lot of people I was doing it. But number two, my self-talk was like, hey, you are ready for this. You trained for this. You're going to finish this. That's what I kept telling myself. And that's the same thing. You need to check your self-talk. You need to wake up every morning and say, hey, I'm in this situation. It's a little bit sticky, but I know I can get out. I know that God's going to bring about the right resources to get me out. I know that I have the right team around me to get out. If I don't have it, I'm going to change them, right? You need to give yourself that good self-talk. You need to say, hey, I am good at what I do. I can get myself to a better place financially, a better place mentally, a better place spiritually, whatever may be the case. You need to check your self-talk. It is so important to what you say, to what you do. You need to check your self-talk. It is so important to making sure that you do the right things in the right season at the right time, and that you don't tell yourself a negative message. You can do it, right? That's what you need to tell yourself. You can't tell yourself you're a failure. You can't tell yourself that, you messed this up. Although those things may be true in certain aspects, or you may have failed at something, that doesn't make you a failure. I fail all the time. I fail daily. I am trying to fail as fast as possible because on the other side of failure is victory, is success. So if I can fail 10 times, that one success is going to be the only thing that I get to talk about. I can't tell you how many times that I tried to run, a 5K and I just stopped at like a mile and was like, I'm done, right? I just start walking, right? But because of the fact that I just kept trying, I kept trying. I can't tell you the amount of times that I tried to save X amount of dollars, but something would come up. Car would break down, kids' school or kids' activities would come up or whatever. But you just keep trying. You keep working. You keep getting your craft better. You keep trying to take the steps to make you get to a better spot financially, spiritually, mentally, socially, physically, all those things. And so, again, you have to audit your self-talk. Make sure you're telling yourself the right things. You can do it. You can do it. You can do it. And those are the 8 things, y'all. Just breaking it down from you. Again, I had time during my triathlon to really think through exactly, what I want to tell this community. And coming back from that just a week ago, I feel good. I feel excited. I'll probably do another one next year. I need a year to take a break, to recover. That's how traumatized I am. But at the end of the day, those 8 things are the things that stuck with me. And I want to share them with you if you're facing foreclosure right now. That leads me to my favorite part of the podcast, which is our bow tie round. And in our bow tie rounds, where you, our guests, get to tie one on with your host, DJ Alojo. The B in bow tie round stands for your best advice for somebody facing foreclosure. The O stands for one thing you're grateful for. And the W stands for your wildest or most interesting foreclosure-related story. My best advice for you is audit your self-talk. I really want you to understand this. you need to make sure you are telling yourself the right things. Whether you need to get an affirmations book to give yourself good affirmations, whether you need to erase the things that people have said about you and start replacing them with things that are going to lift you up. They're going to encourage you. You know, you are a good husband. You are a good father. You are a good mother. You are a good provider. You are a good sister. You are a good brother, right? You need to change your self-talk. Stop beating yourself up day in and day out because you find yourself in a challenging situation. It is okay. You will get through this. Audit your self-talk. That's my best advice for you. One thing I'm grateful for the good folks at Home Depot. Yes, the folks with the orange vest. Grateful for them because I spend a lot of money at Home Depot and I'm a Home Depot pro. We renovate a lot of property and unfortunately, they get a lot of my money. But I'm grateful that they exist because they definitely help me get projects completed. So shout out to Home Depot. My wildest or most interesting foreclosure related story just comes from a file that I'm working. And it's just quite interesting because I always find it funny when people are paying more in fees and legal costs than they are on their actual mortgage. And what I mean by that is we're working on a mortgage and I think the payoff amount for the mortgage is like $4,000. Yes, $4,000. That's a lot of money, but it's not a lot of money when you think about a house or a mortgage. So all they need to do is pay off $4,000. They're delinquent on the mortgage. We've reached out, we've communicated, we've done all the things we need to do, and they are not responding. And we had to start legal. And guess what? Legal started, they didn't respond, but guess what? The legal bill now is over $6,000. So I had a $4,000 mortgage. Now the legal bill is $6,000. And guess what? They have to pay it all. So they now owe $10,000 when they could have just paid $4,000. And so that's what I always tell you is don't delay when you're dealing with foreclosure. You want to make sure that you get to the bottom of a situation sooner rather than later because more time equals more interest costs, more fees, and more legal costs. All right. That closes our podcast today. As always, I'm so grateful for you all listening. I appreciate you tuning in and letting me talk about the 8 things and 8 mindsets that you need to have to overcome foreclosure and to get on the other side successfully. If the mission to help 1 million homeowners resonates with you, please do me a favor, like, subscribe, and share our content with someone who you know can benefit. Leave us a 5-star review. It really helps the algorithm. And send us an email at help@theforeclosurefix.com if you have questions or topics you want us to discuss. As always, my name is DJ Lojo. I love you and God bless you. I'll see you soon. The views and opinions on this podcast are for informational purposes only and should not be construed as legal advice. If you have a specific legal question, we highly recommend you contact a qualified legal professional.